Hey, let's talk about these. If you're into synthesizers and music gear, you have probably seen these two devices. And the odds are that even if you're not that into music gear, you have at least seen this device right here on social media like Instagram and YouTube. The OP-1 by Teenage Engineering. So what are these weird little cool looking gadgets? What can they do? Should you get one? And if yes, which one? So let's have a look. So let's take a little look at what these weird little synthesizers are and what they can do. They're basically small portable synthesizers, samplers, and digital audio workspaces combined. Meaning that you can design and synthesize your own sounds, sample sounds or songs, add effects, and record your music. You can make full songs using only the sound engines and storage on these devices without having to use a computer at all until you need to export the files. And this makes them perfect for traveling. Now, the OP-1 and the OP-Z have a lot of things in common, but they also have some major differences. Let's take a look at what each device can do. The OP-1 has several different synth engines. A sampler, both melodic and rhythmic.
Servers 1071.
Several effects, various sequencers, and a really cool graphic interface. It's emulating a 4-track tape recorder, so you have 4 separate tracks you can record to, but you can overdub each track as many times as you'd like. But once you've recorded something on tape, you can't remove layers. You either have to leave it or cut out everything. This makes it very important to always be aware of which tape track you're recording to, so you don't overdub tracks you have recorded something else to. And if you're new to the OP-1, you will absolutely mess up many times. It has piano-like keys that aren't velocity sensitive, but you actually don't think about it that much once you start using it. The OP-Z has many of the same synth engines as the OP-1. It also has a sampler and sequencer, but since it doesn't have a screen, the user interface is very different. You can either rely on the LEDs, or you can connect it to a phone or tablet and get a graphic interface that way. The LED interface seems quite intimidating at first, but once you start using it, it is actually very intuitive. And I find myself most commonly using the OP-Z without connecting it to my iPad. Unlike the OP-1, the OP-Z is primarily a sequencer, meaning that you can edit your sequences and recordings after you've made them, but you can't record to a tape and overdub a track endlessly. Each synth and drum engine represents a separate track, and you can tweak the sounds and sequences after you've recorded them, but they can't be overdubbed. The keys are small round buttons that feel kind of strange and are not velocity sensitive. But you can easily connect an external MIDI keyboard for better playability and velocity sensitivity. The OP-1 and OP-Z also work great together. You can either connect them via USB to send MIDI signals between each other, or send audio via an aux cable. They can also send clock signals to each other so you can synchronize the tempo and recordings. Both of these devices pack a lot of power in an incredibly small package. They're both small enough to be easily put in your backpack or your carry-on when you're traveling, but the OP-Z has a slight edge because it's so small that you won't even notice that you're carrying it. It's just the size of a remote control, so you could even put it in your pocket. Although I don't recommend you to do so because it will probably bend. Another benefit of the OP-Z is that because it doesn't have a screen, it is a lot easier to use outside. The LEDs are strong enough to be seen in full daylight, even though direct sunlight might require some squinting. And if you connect it to a phone or tablet, most smart devices now have screens that are bright enough to be seen in bright lights. The OP-1 is unfortunately close to impossible to being used outdoors in daylight. The display is absolutely necessary for use, but it's not bright enough for outdoor use, so using it in daylight is practically impossible. You can see even here with my studio lights, it's kind of hard to actually see what's happening on the screen. But it works great when flying or traveling by bus and train, and it's small enough to be easily put in your carry-on or your hand luggage, and the display works perfectly in indoor lighting. Compatibility. These devices can both be used as MIDI controllers in your DAW as well. But you might wonder, if these devices aren't velocity sensitive, what's the point? And the short answer is sequencers. The OP-1 has several great sequencers that you can use in your DAW without having to use plugins. You have, for example, the endless sequencer. You have the tombola, which gives you the notes you put in random order. And it's really great for example, atmospheric music. So if I put in a pentatonic scale, so you can see it's being put into the DAW as the notes are hitting the wall in this white vessel. You have the finger sequencer. You have the arpeggio sequencer, which arpeggiates whatever chord you're pressing down. And then you have a couple of weird ones, like sketch and pattern. The OP-Z is in itself a sequencer, so if you want a more hands-on approach to sequencing, you can simply make a sequence and then record the MIDI from that sequence into your DAW. In addition, the OP-Z also has an arpeggiator similar to the one in OP-1. These features make the OP-1 and the OP-Z great music studio tools that you can use to really amp up your workflow with. Limitations. Let us look at some limitations of the two devices. The OP-1 lacks the possibility to edit the material once you've recorded it. This is more of a challenge than a limitation, but if you do forget to change the tracks when you're recording new parts, it can definitely be frustrating and feel limiting. However, you'll get better at this as you get more experienced. You also lack the ability to export MIDI of what you've recorded, because everything in the OP-1 is saved as audio waveform and not as MIDI. The OP-Z can only record one instrument or one sound per track, but you do have a lot more tracks available. The keys are not very comfortable, and you do get ghost notes at times. But this also gets easier with more practice. Another limitation of the OP-Z is that you're not able to record audio directly from the microphone onto the track, because you have to sample the audio first and then sequence or record it to a track. Price. These things are not cheap. The OP-Z is a cheaper option, coming in at $599, and the OP-1 costs at the moment $1,121. And this is a reduced price since this year is the 10th anniversary for the OP-1. The list price before the anniversary was $1,299. So it's unclear if the price will jump back up after the anniversary price or if they will keep the lower price. So, are they worth it? Well, it depends. It is hard to understand how teenage engineering can justify the almost $1,300 price tag on the OP-1, especially because the OP-1 has been out for more than 10 years now without any major hardware changes. Most likely, they just found the maximum price that people were willing to pay for it. However, if you are willing to spend the money, These devices are amazing creativity boosters, and you can really surprise yourself with the results that you can get from these devices. But you will definitely want to make sure that you have enough time to sit down and properly learn these devices and not just let them gather dust somewhere. So that was some of the features of these two funky little synthesizers. They are a ton of fun and you can produce great music with them. But is the price worth it? Well, I'll leave that up to you. So what do you think about these synthesizers? Do you have one of them yourself? Or are you maybe planning on getting one? Feel free to leave a comment with your thoughts and your opinions in the comment section below. So thank you for watching, leave a like, I'll see you in the next video. And in the meantime, you can check out this video right here where I'm comparing MIDI keyboards and MIDI pads to see which one is better for you.